Hello and welcome to our cozy corner of mystery, where every story feels like a conversation over a warm cup of coffee. Today, we embark on a thrilling tale of deduction, set against the fog-laden streets of Victorian London and the ancient spires of Prague. This is a long tale, crafted for master detectives, spanning 10 chapters and approximately 25,000 words, told through the loyal pen of Dr. John Watson. Prepare for a complex case filled with intrigue, red herrings, and the brilliant mind of Sherlock Holmes. Chapter 1. A Visitor in the Fog. Hello and welcome to our cozy corner of mystery, where every story feels like a conversation over a warm cup of coffee. Tonight, we embark on a tale woven from the shadows of Victorian London, where the brilliance of Sherlock Holmes will unravel a puzzle as intricate as the stars themselves. Settle by the fire, dear reader, as I, Dr. John Watson, recount the strange and somber case of the murder at Prague Astronomical Tower. It was a November evening in 1889, and the fog that cloaked London was thicker than I had ever seen, a dense yellow shroud that muffled the clatter of hansom cabs and dimmed the gas lamps to mere pinpricks of light. The air was heavy with the scent of coal smoke and damp wool, and Baker Street lay silent, as if the city held its breath. I sat in our familiar lodgings at 221B, my chair drawn close to the fire, which cast a warm glow over the cluttered room. Sherlock Holmes's violin lay abandoned on the table, its bow resting atop a pile of chemical journals. A retort bubbled softly in the corner, evidence of some experiment Holmes had left unattended. My friend himself lounged in his armchair, his long legs stretched toward the hearth, his sharp, hawk-like features softened by the firelight. His fingers were steepled beneath his chin, and his gray eyes stared into the flames with that peculiar intensity that signaled a mind restless for a challenge. "Watson," he said at last, his voice. "Distress is rarely unaccompanied by intrigue." Moments later, a woman stepped into the room, her presence as striking as it was somber. She was young, perhaps no more than 30, with a delicate, almost ethereal beauty. Her dark hair was pinned neatly beneath a veiled hat, and her black morning dress, though elegant, was slightly disheveled, as if she had dressed in haste. Her pale face was drawn, her eyes large and gray, brimmed with unshed tears, and her gloved hands clutched a small reticule with a tremor that betrayed her composure. The fog seemed to cling to her, a faint mist curling about her skirts as she stood in the doorway, a vision of Victorian sorrow framed against the dim hall. "Mr. Sherlock Holmes?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, with a faint quiver that spoke of tightly controlled emotion. "I am he," Holmes replied, rising with a fluid grace and gesturing to a chair. "And this is my friend and colleague, Dr. John Watson. Pray, be seated, and tell us what brings you to Baker Street on such a night." She sank into the chair, her movements careful, as if she feared to shatter under the weight of her purpose. "My name is Miss Eleanor Varnum," she began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke. "I come to you on a matter of life and death, or rather, death alone, for my brother is beyond saving. Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson, I implore your help. My brother, Professor James Varnum, an astronomer of some renown, has been found dead in Prague's astronomical tower. They say it was murder, committed in a room locked from within. The police are baffled, and I cannot rest until the truth is known." Holmes leaned forward, his eyes narrowing with that predatory focus I knew so well. A locked-room murder in a tower dedicated to the stars. Most intriguing. Pray, Miss Varnum, tell us all, and omit no detail, however trivial it may seem. Miss Varnum drew a deep breath, her fingers tightening on her reticule. My brother James was a brilliant man, devoted to the study of the heavens. He held a position at the Clementinum and "They are at a loss," she replied. Inspector Karel Novak, who leads the investigation, claims it is impossible. The tower's observatory is high above the city, accessible only by a single stair, and the door was locked from the inside. No windows were open, no ladders found, no footprints in the dust. They suspect foul play but cannot fathom how it was done. They even question James's rival, Professor Klaus Dietrich, but he has an alibi, a lecture attended by dozens. I know James was not mad, as some now whisper. He was murdered, Mr. Holmes, and I beg you to find his killer. Holmes's fingers tapped lightly on the arm of his chair, a sign of his mind at work. This discovery of your brother's, did he share any specifics? A manuscript, perhaps, or a particular study? Miss Varnum shook her head. He was secretive, even with me. He said only that it involved the tower itself, something hidden in its history. He mentioned a name once, Tycho Brahe, the old astronomer, but I know no more. Tycho Brahe, Holmes murmured, his eyes distant. A curious reference. And enemies? Beyond this Professor Dietrich, did your brother speak of any who might wish him harm? None by name, she said, but his letters suggested he felt watched, as if his work had drawn unwanted attention. He was not a man to make enemies, Mr. Holmes. He lived for his stars. Holmes rose abruptly, his lean frame casting a long shadow across the room. Miss Varnum, your case is one of singular interest. A locked room, a cryptic discovery, and a hint of ancient secrets. This is no common crime. Watson, what say you to a journey to Prague? I started, caught off guard by the suddenness of his decision. Prague? At once? At dawn, he corrected, a faint smile playing on his lips. The Continental Express departs at 8. We shall need our rest, for I suspect this case will demand all our faculties. Miss Varnum, you will hear from us soon. Leave your address with Mrs. Hudson, and we shall keep you informed. Miss Varnum rose, her enigma. The fire in our Baker Street lodgings crackled softly as Sherlock Holmes and I sat opposite Miss Eleanor Varnum, her pale face illuminated by the flickering glow. The fog outside had thickened, pressing against the windows of 221B like a living thing, muffling the distant clatter of London's hansom cabs. The air within was warm, yet heavy with the weight of Miss Varnum's tale. A brother murdered in Prague's ancient astronomical tower. A locked room, a dagger in his chest, and a mystery that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Holmes, his lean frame taut with anticipation, leaned forward, his gray eyes sharp as they fixed upon our visitor. Miss Varnum, said he, his voice low and precise, you have painted a vivid picture, but details are the scaffolding of truth. Let us rebuild the scene. Tell me of your brother, his habits, his work, his final days. Omit nothing, for what seems trivial to you may be the key to this enigma. Miss Varnum clasped her gloved hands tightly, her reticule resting forgotten in her lap. James, Professor Varnum was a man of singular focus, she began, her voice steadier now, though tinged with sorrow. He was 38, older than I by a decade, and lived for his study of the heavens. At the Clementinum in Prague, where the astronomical tower stands, he held a post as chief astronomer. His work involved cataloging stars, charting their movements, and deciphering ancient astronomical texts. He was meticulous, Mr. Holmes, and his reputation among scholars was impeccable. Yet he was no recluse. He wrote to me often, his letters brimming with enthusiasm for his discoveries. Holmes's fingers tapped lightly on the arm of his chair, a rhythm that betrayed his racing mind. And this discovery you mentioned, a revelation to alter our understanding of the cosmos. Did he elaborate, even in passing? She shook her head, her gray eyes clouding with frustration. With a care that bordered on reverence, unfolding it to reveal a cramped, hurried script. He scanned the page, his lips moving slightly as he read. "Curious," he murmured. "The tower guards its secrets, but I have found the key. Beware the saffron veil, Eleanor, for it conceals treachery." The saffron veil. What does this mean to you? Miss Varnum frowned. "Nothing, Mr. Holmes. I thought it a poetic turn, perhaps a reference to his work." James was fond of metaphor. Holmes's eyes gleamed. "Metaphors are the cloaks of truth, Miss Varnum. And this mention of treachery. Did he name any foes?" "Only one," she said. "Professor Klaus Dietrich, a German astronomer at the Clementinum." James wrote that Dietrich envied his success and disputed his findings. They had quarreled publicly over a paper James published on stellar parallax. Dietrich called it fanciful, but James believed he was simply jealous. Holmes handed the letter to me, and I noted the trembling hand in which it was written. The ink smudged as if penned in haste. "And the circumstances of his death," Holmes pressed. "The police report. What precisely did it state?" Miss Varnum's composure faltered, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Inspector Karel Novak wrote to me. James was found at midnight, in the observatory atop the tower. The room was locked from within, the key in his pocket. A dagger, his own, kept for opening letters, was plunged into his heart. There were no signs of a struggle, no footprints in the dust, no windows open. The observatory is high above the city, accessible only by a single spiral stair, guarded by a porter who saw no one enter or leave. Novak suspects murder but cannot explain how it was done." Holmes leaned back, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. "A locked room, a solitary key, and a dagger that tells no tales. Most intriguing. Was your brother alone that night?" So the poor cryptic warning of a saffron veil. This is a puzzle of exquisite complexity. Watson, what say you to this affair? I set the letter aside, my mind reeling. It's extraordinary, Holmes. A murder with no apparent means of entry or escape. It defies logic. And this talk of a discovery, a relic perhaps, could it be the motive? "Logic, Watson, is our lantern in this fog," he replied, pacing before the fire. "The motive lies in what your brother found, Miss Varnum, and who feared its revelation. We must see the tower for ourselves, examine the scene, and uncover what this saffron veil conceals. Watson, pack your bag. We depart for Prague on the morning train. I blinked, caught by the suddenness of his resolve. Prague, tomorrow? The Continental Express leaves at 8, he said, his tone brooking no argument. This case demands haste, for secrets, like stars, are best seen before they fade. Miss Varnum, leave your brother's letters with us, and your address with Mrs. Hudson. We shall wire you with our findings. Miss Varnum rose, her face a mixture of gratitude and lingering grief. Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Dr. Watson. I knew you would not turn me away. She handed over a small bundle of letters tied with a ribbon and departed into the fog, her footsteps echoing faintly as Mrs. Hudson saw her out. Holmes turned to me, his eyes alight with that fierce curiosity I knew so well. What do you make of it, Watson? A labyrinth, I admitted. A locked room, a cryptic discovery, and a hint of treachery. It's as if the tower itself is a puzzle box. Precisely, Holmes said, retrieving his pipe from the mantel. And every puzzle box has a mechanism, however cunningly concealed. The saffron veil, the missing journal, the name of Tycho Brahe. These are threads in a tapestry we must unravel. Prepare yourself, Watson, for Prague will test our mettle. As I retired to my room, the fog seemed to seep through the walls, carrying with it a scent of cobblestones. Holmes was silent, his sharp profile etched against the cab's window as he stared into the shrouded streets. I knew that look. His mind was already dissecting the fragments of Miss Varnum's tale. A dagger, a locked observatory, a missing journal, and the cryptic mention of a saffron veil. I clutched the bundle of her brother's letters, their worn edges a testament to the urgency of our mission. At Victoria Station, the platform buzzed with travelers, their voices mingling with the hiss of steam and the shrill whistle of the train. The Continental Express loomed before us, its black locomotive gleaming under the gas lamps, promising a journey through the heart of Europe. Holmes, clad in his Inverness cape, moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the crowd as if clues might lurk among the porters and passengers. We secured a private compartment, and as the train lurched forward, London's sooty sprawl gave way to the rolling fields of Kent, veiled in morning haze. Watson, Holmes said, breaking his silence as he lit his pipe. What do you know of Prague? I considered the question, my medical training offering little in the way of geography. A city of ancient beauty, I suppose. Castles, bridges, a place steeped in history. I've heard of its astronomical heritage. Tycho Brahe, was it? The name Miss Varnum mentioned. Holmes nodded, exhaling a plume of smoke. Precisely. Prague is a city where the past and present intertwine like the threads of a tapestry. The Clementinum, where our Professor Varnum met his end, is a bastion of learning, home to the astronomical tower since the days of the Jesuits. Tycho Brahe, the Danish astronomer, worked there in the late 16th century, charting the heavens with a precision that reshaped science. If Varnum's discovery is tied to Brahe, we are dealing with a secret that may span centuries. I frowned, the weight of his words settling over me. A secret worth killing for? It seems fantastical over the Vltava River, like stone sentinels. The city was a labyrinth of cobblestone streets, gaslit alleys, and ancient facades, their shadows alive with the whispers of history. As we disembarked at the central station, the air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves. A hansom cab carried us through the city's heart, past the ornate facades of the old town and the looming silhouette of Prague Castle. The Clementinum, a sprawling complex of Baroque buildings, rose before us, its astronomical tower a stark medieval spire that seemed to pierce the clouds. I felt a chill, not from the autumn breeze, but from the weight of the task ahead. Somewhere within that tower a man had died, and the truth of his murder lay hidden in its stones. At the Clementinum's gates we were met by Inspector Karl Novak, a stout man with a bristling mustache and eyes that regarded us with thinly veiled skepticism. His dark uniform was immaculate, but his manner was brusque, his English heavily accented. "Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson," he said, offering a curt nod. "I was informed of your arrival. I must warn you, this case is hopeless. A man dead, a room locked, no trace of an intruder. It is beyond reason." Holmes's lips curled into a faint smile. "My dear Inspector, reason is precisely what will resolve this matter. The impossible is merely a problem yet to be solved. Pray take us to the tower." Novak led us through the Clementinum's courtyards, where scholars in black robes hurried past, their footsteps echoing on the flagstones. The tower itself was a formidable structure, its weathered stones carved with celestial motifs, stars, moons, and comets frozen in time. A narrow spiral staircase wound upward, its steps worn smooth by centuries of use. The air grew colder as we ascended, the scent of dust and old parchment mingling with a faint metallic tang I recognized all too well from my days as an army surgeon. At the top, the observatory door stood ajar, its heavy oak frame unyielding. The room beyond was a marvel of Victorian, perhaps a code. Novak snorted. "A code? You see mysteries where there are none, Mr. Holmes." The door was locked, the key in Varnum's pocket. No one entered or left. It is a puzzle with no solution. Holmes ignored him, his attention shifting to a faint scent in the air. "Tobacco," he said, sniffing delicately. "Curious. Miss Varnum said her brother did not smoke, yet the odor lingers. Inspector, was anyone else present when the body was found?" "Only old Pavel the porter," Novak replied. "He discovered Varnum at midnight, locked the tower as usual at 10. He saw nothing, heard nothing." Holmes nodded, his expression unreadable. "We shall speak with Pavel, and I shall need access to Varnum's lodgings, his papers, anything that remains of his work." Novak's eyes narrowed. "You doubt my investigation?" "I doubt nothing," Holmes said smoothly. "I merely seek the truth. Watson, let us begin. The tower has spoken, but its voice is faint. We must listen closely." As we descended the staircase, the weight of the mystery pressed upon me. The locked room, the cryptic scratches, the missing journal, all pointed to a truth as elusive as the stars Varnum had studied. Yet Holmes's confidence was a beacon in the fog, and I knew that in Prague's ancient streets we would find the threads to unravel this enigma. Shadows in the tower. The astronomical tower of the Clementinum loomed over Prague like a sentinel of the ages, its ancient stones bathed in the pale glow of a rising moon. The city below was cloaked in fog, its gas lamps casting feeble halos that flickered in the mist. I, Dr. John Watson, followed Sherlock Holmes up the tower's narrow spiral staircase, each step echoing with the weight of the mystery we sought to unravel. The murder of Professor James Varnum in this very observatory, a locked room, a dagger in his heart, and no trace of an intruder, had drawn us across the continent. Now, standing at the threshold of the crime scene, every detail, from the angle of the telescope to the faint scratches on its base. "Watson," he said, his voice low but resonant. "Observe the dust. It tells a tale of disturbance, not by the police, but by someone or something else. The pattern is uneven, as if swept by a hurried hand." I knelt beside him, peering at the floor. The dust was indeed patchy, with faint arcs suggesting movement, though no clear footprints emerged. "Could it be the porter, Pavel, cleaning after the discovery?" I asked. Holmes shook his head, his magnifying glass glinting as he examined the telescope's base. "Pavel is elderly, methodical. These marks suggest haste, perhaps concealment. And these scratches—" He traced the faint lines which formed a cryptic pattern, circles intersected by angular strokes. Not vandalism, but a deliberate inscription. A code, perhaps, or a message left by Varnum in his final moments. Inspector Novak, standing by the door with arms crossed, snorted derisively. "A code? You see phantoms, Mr. Holmes." The room was locked, the key in Varnum's pocket. No one entered or left. The scratches are old, meaningless. Holmes's lips curled into a faint smile, undeterred. "Meaningless to the untrained eye, Inspector. Every mark has a purpose, if one knows where to look." He straightened, his gaze shifting to the single window, a narrow pane of leaded glass set high in the wall. It was latched from within, its frame unmarred by signs of tampering. I tested it myself, finding it immovable, its iron latch rusted with age. "No entry here," I said, stepping back. "And the door, solid oak, locked from the inside. How could a murderer vanish?" Holmes did not answer immediately, his attention drawn to a faint scent in the air, sniffing delicately. "Tobacco," he murmured. "The same as I noted. Observations. Watson, this may be the key to Varnum's discovery." I peered over his shoulder, the Latin unfamiliar but the drawing clear, a detailed rendering of the astrolabe with a note scrawled in the margin. "The veil conceals the light." The phrase echoed the saffron veil from Varnum's letter, sending a shiver down my spine. "Another cryptic hint," I said. "Could it be tied to this relic he sought?" "Undoubtedly," Holmes replied, folding the paper and tucking it into his pocket. "But we must tread carefully. The Star of Tycho, if it exists, is no mere trinket. It drew a murderer's hand, and we are not alone in this pursuit." Novak shifted impatiently. "You waste time with fairy tales, Mr. Holmes. Varnum was a scholar, not a treasure hunter. His journal is missing, yes, but likely misplaced. There is no evidence of theft." Holmes's eyes gleamed. "No evidence, Inspector, because you have not looked for it. The absence of the journal is itself a clue. It was taken, not misplaced, to conceal what Varnum knew." He turned to the telescope, adjusting its focus with a practiced hand. Peering through the eyepiece, he frowned. The alignment is off, Watson. The telescope is set not to a star, but to a point within the city. Toward the old town, if I'm not mistaken. I followed his gaze, though the fog obscured the view. Could Varnum have been observing something terrestrial? Or someone? Holmes said, his tone sharp. The telescope's position is no accident. It was moved, perhaps after his death, to mislead us. He stepped back, his mind visibly racing. We must speak with Pavel, the porter. His account of the night is too tidy, and I distrust tidy accounts. We descended the staircase, the tower's shadows lengthening as the moon climbed higher. Pavel, a stooped figure with a weathered face, awaited us in the courtyard, his lantern casting a feeble glow. His hands trembled as he spoke, his English halting but clear. I saw nothing, gentlemen, he insisted. I locked the outer door at 10. Missed. Their silhouettes both beautiful and foreboding. I felt the weight of the tower's secrets pressing upon us. Its locked room a puzzle that defied reason. Yet Holmes's confidence was unshaken, his mind a beacon in the fog. Tomorrow, Watson, he said as we reached our lodgings. We shall visit Varnum's rooms. The journal, the tobacco, the star of Tycho. These are threads in a web we must untangle. Sleep well, for Prague's shadows are deep, and we have only begun to plumb them. As I retired, the tower's image lingered in my mind, its stones guarding a truth as elusive as the stars. What had Varnum seen through that telescope? And who had killed to keep it hidden? Only Holmes, I knew, could pierce the darkness of this mystery. Key visual moment, thumbnail potential. Holmes examining the telescope in the moonlit observatory, his magnifying glass catching the light, with cryptic scratches visible on its base. Background music suggestion. Eerie strings, slow and suspenseful, building tension with subtle dissonant notes. Sound effects. Creaking floorboards, distant owl hoot, faint wind whistling through the tower's slit, rustling papers. Engagement prompt. What do you make of the cryptic scratches on the telescope? Try decoding them in the comments. Chapter 5. The Scholar's Secret. The morning sun struggled through Prague's persistent fog, casting a pale glow over the city's Gothic spires, as Sherlock Holmes and I set out from our lodgings. The mystery of Professor James Varnum's murder in the astronomical tower weighed heavily upon me, Dr. John Watson, as we navigated the cobblestone streets toward the late astronomer's residence. The locked room enigma, the cryptic scratches on the telescope, and the lingering scent of tobacco had ignited Holmes's relentless curiosity. And I knew his mind was already weaving the scattered clues into a pattern only he could see. Our destination was Varnum's lodgings, where we hoped to uncover the missing journal or some trace of the secret that had cost him his life. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke and damp stone as our handsome cab rattled through the old town. Prague's ancient beauty was undeniable, its bridges arching gracefully over the Vltava, its clock towers ticking away the centuries. But there was a shadow over the city, a sense of secrets buried in its stones. Holmes sat beside me, his sharp features set in concentration, his fingers drumming lightly on the bundle of Varnum's letters we had brought from London. "Watson," he said, breaking the silence, "the key to this case lies not in the tower alone, but in what Varnum knew. His journal, his discovery, the saffron veil. These are not mere details, but the scaffolding of his murder. I nodded, though my mind still grappled with the impossibilities of the case. The locked room baffles me, Holmes. No footprints, no open windows, a key in the victim's pocket. How could a murderer vanish? Holmes's lips curled into a faint smile. The impossible, Watson, is often a matter of perspective. We shall find answers in Varnum's world, his rivals, his work, his fears. We arrived at a modest house near the Clementinum, its facade weathered but dignified, with ivy clinging to the stonework. The landlady, a stout woman named Mrs. Kovarova, calculations and sketches of celestial alignments, but no journal. If the police missed it, where could it be? I asked. Holmes did not answer, his attention drawn to a locked drawer in the desk. With a deft twist of a hairpin, procured from Mrs. Hudson's supplies back in London, he opened it, revealing a small bundle of letters tied with twine. Unlike those Miss Varnum had provided, these were written in a different hand, terse and formal. Holmes scanned them, his eyes narrowing. Correspondence with Professor Klaus Dietrich, he said, our supposed rival. Listen to this, Watson. Your claims are baseless, Varnum. The Star of Tycho is a myth, and your obsession will ruin you. The Star of Tycho again, I said, recalling the note from the observatory. Dietrich dismissed it, but could he have believed it enough to kill? Possibly, Holmes replied, tucking the letters into his pocket. But belief is not proof. Dietrich's alibi is strong, a lecture hall full of witnesses. We must test its foundations. Our next stop was a tavern near the university, a dimly lit establishment where scholars and students gathered over tankards of dark Bohemian ale. The air was thick with pipe smoke and the hum of intellectual debate, a stark contrast to the tower's eerie silence. Holmes, with his uncanny knack for blending into any setting, led us to a corner table where Professor Klaus Dietrich held court, his booming voice and thick German accent unmistakable. He was a burly man with a florid face, his eyes sharp but guarded as he noticed our approach. Professor Dietrich, Holmes said, his tone polite but firm. I am Sherlock Holmes, and this is Dr. Watson. We are investigating the death of Professor Varnum. May we have a word? Dietrich's expression soured, but he gestured to the empty chairs. I've told the police all I know, he said gruffly. Varnum was a fool, chasing myths instead of science. His death is a tragedy, but I was lecturing that night. 50 students can confirm it. Holmes leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Woman with keen eyes and a nervous demeanor slipped Holmes a note as she cleared our table. He unfolded it discreetly, revealing a single line. The journal is with the order. Beware the tower at midnight. Holmes's eyes gleamed with interest. An unexpected ally, Watson. The plot thickens. Back at Varnum's lodgings, Holmes resumed his search, his movements methodical yet urgent. Beneath a loose floorboard, he uncovered a hidden compartment containing a single page torn from a notebook. It bore a sketch of the astrolabe from the observatory with a Latin inscription. Sub velo saffrani veritas latet. Beneath the saffron veil, the truth lies hidden. Beside it was a list of dates, each corresponding to a celestial event, the last marked for the night of Varnum's death. This is no coincidence, Holmes said, his voice low. Varnum's discovery was tied to these alignments, and someone ensured he would not live to reveal it. The order mentioned in the note. Could it be a society guarding the Star of Tycho? I felt a chill, not from the cold, but from the growing complexity of the case. But Dietrich's alibi, Holmes, it's ironclad. And the locked room, how does it fit? Holmes's smile was enigmatic. Alibis can be constructed, Watson, and locked rooms are rarely as secure as they seem. Dietrich may be innocent, or he may be a master of misdirection. This page confirms Varnum's work was no myth. We must return to the tower tonight, at midnight, as the note suggests. As we stepped into the fog-laden streets, Prague's shadows seemed to close around us. The tavern's warmth faded, replaced by the city's Gothic chill. The mention of an order and the saffron veil echoed in my mind, hinting at a conspiracy older and deeper than a single murder. Holmes's confidence was unshaken, but I sensed we were treading into dangerous waters, where the truth was as elusive as the stars veiled by the city's fog. Chapter 6. A web of inscription. Sub velo safrani, veritas latet. And the list of celestial dates suggested a discovery tied to the tower's ancient history. The note from the barmaid, warning of the journal's whereabouts with the order, had set Holmes's course like a compass needle. Watson, he said, his voice low. Tonight we pierce the veil. The tower at midnight holds answers, but we must tread carefully. Deceptions are woven thickly here. I checked my revolver, a habit from my army days, though I hoped it would remain unused. This order, I said. Could it be a secret society? And the saffron veil, some kind of symbol or code? Holmes nodded, tucking the page into his coat. Precisely. The term suggests a ritualistic element, perhaps a cabal guarding the Star of Tycho. Varnum's discovery threatened their secrecy, and his death was the price. But the barmaid's note, why warn us? An ally, or another thread in the web? We slipped into the streets, the fog muffling our footsteps as we approached the Clementinum. The complex was a labyrinth of Baroque facades and shadowed courtyards, the astronomical tower rising like a dark sentinel. The outer gate was locked, but Holmes, with a deft twist of his lockpick, gained us entry. The courtyard was silent, save for the drip of water from a stone fountain. The tower's door stood ajar, a sliver of moonlight revealing the spiral staircase within. As we ascended, the air grew colder, carrying the musty scent of ancient stone. At the observatory, the telescope gleamed faintly, its cryptic scratches unchanged. Holmes paused, his senses alert, then gestured to a corner of the room where a trap-door lay hidden beneath a rug. Clever, he murmured, lifting it to reveal a narrow ladder descending into darkness. A secret passage, Watson. The locked room may not be so locked after all. Before we could explore, a faint noise echoed from below. A shuffle, like cautious footsteps. Holmes's hand shot up, signaling silence. We crouched behind the telescope, the shadows our only cover, as a figure emerged from the courtyard. His tone remained firm. You've done well to tell us, Jan. Now go, and speak of this to no one. Jan fled, his footsteps fading into the night. The journal was a treasure trove, its pages filled with Varnum's notes on the Star of Tycho. A fabled artifact, he wrote, hidden in the tower since Tycho Brahe's time, said to unlock celestial wisdom. He described a secret society, the Order of the Saffron Veil, dedicated to guarding it. The final entry, dated the night of his death, read, "They know. The alignment reveals the chamber, but I am watched. If I fall, the truth lies with the stars." Holmes's eyes gleamed. "The alignment, Watson, the telescope's position. Varnum was mapping a celestial event to locate this chamber. But the order moved swiftly to silence him." We descended the ladder, finding a cramped chamber beneath the observatory, its walls carved with alchemical symbols. A stone pedestal held a brass mechanism, its gears aligned to a star chart overhead. Holmes studied it, his fingers tracing the carvings. "A lock," he said, "keyed to the heavens." Varnum was close to opening it, but our discovery was interrupted by a sudden creak from above. Footsteps echoed, deliberate and heavy. Holmes doused our lantern, plunging us into darkness. A voice, low and menacing, called out, "You meddle in matters beyond you, Englishman." A cloaked figure stood at the trapdoor, a glint of steel in his hand. Holmes whispered, "Stay low, Watson." He moved silently, circling the chamber, but the figure vanished as quickly as he had appeared, leaving only the echo of his warning. We emerged cautiously, finding the observatory empty, save for a single saffron thread caught on the trapdoor's edge. "The Order is watching," Holmes said, pocketing the thread. "They know we have the journal, and they fear what we'll uncover." Back at our lodgings, Holmes pored over the journal, his pipe smoke curling in the lamplight. "Likely among the Order's ranks." As dawn approached, the fog outside seemed to mirror the case's complexity. The Order of the Saffron Veil, the Star of Tycho, the hidden chamber, all pointed to a conspiracy deeper than a single murder. Yet a nagging doubt lingered. Was Jan's delivery of the journal a genuine lead? Or had we been lured into a trap? Holmes, undaunted, prepared for our next move, his mind a beacon in the gathering storm. "Tomorrow," he said, "we return to the tower. The stars will guide us, Watson, but we must beware the shadows they cast." As I retired, the saffron thread seemed to burn in my mind, a symbol of the deceptions we faced. Prague's ancient streets held secrets as old as the tower itself, and only Holmes could unravel the truth hidden beneath the saffron veil. Chapter 7. The Alchemist's Cipher. The fog of Prague seemed to thicken with each passing day, as if the city itself conspired to veil the truth of Professor James Varnum's murder. I, Dr. John Watson, followed Sherlock Holmes through the labyrinthine streets, the weight of the mystery pressing upon us. The discovery of Varnum's journal, delivered by the nervous Jan in the shadow of the astronomical tower, had revealed a secret society, the Order of the Saffron Veil, and a fabled artifact, the Star of Tycho. The hidden chamber beneath the observatory with its celestial lock hinted at a truth older than the tower itself. Yet the cloaked figure's warning and the saffron thread left behind suggested we were not alone in our pursuit. As we returned to our lodgings near the Clementinum, Holmes's mind was a furnace, forging connections from the tangled clues. The journal lay open on the table, its pages illuminated by a single lamp. Holmes, his pipe sending curls of smoke into the air, studied the text with an intensity that bordered on reverence. Varnum's entries were a blend of scientific precision and almost mystical fervor, detailing his search for the Star of Tycho, a relic, he believed, crafted by Tycho Brahe to encode celestial wisdom. The final entry, written the night of his death, spoke of a chamber revealed by the star. Courtyards deserted, save for the occasional scholar hurrying through the mist. The tower loomed ahead, its medieval spire a dark silhouette against the twilight. Holmes, ever cautious, scanned the shadows for signs of the Order's watchers. The memory of the cloaked figure's threat lingered, and I kept my revolver close, though I prayed it would remain unused. The observatory was as we had left it, the telescope's cryptic scratches glowing faintly in the moonlight filtering through the dome's slit. Holmes moved to the astrolabe on the oak table, its brass surface etched with symbols that mirrored those in Varnum's journal. "Observe, Watson," he said, tracing a series of concentric rings. "These markings correspond to planetary alignments, but the outer ring is a cipher, a sequence of numbers and letters that, when decoded, may reveal the chamber's lock." He cross-referenced the journal, muttering calculations under his breath. The cipher was complex, a blend of Latin abbreviations and numerical sequences tied to the positions of Venus and Jupiter on the night of Varnum's death. Varnum was brilliant, Holmes said, almost to himself. He used the stars themselves as a key. The astrolabe must be set to the precise alignment of that night, October 25, 1889. With careful precision, he adjusted the astrolabe's gears, each click echoing in the silent room. I watched, mesmerized as the symbols aligned, forming a coherent pattern. A faint grinding sound emanated from below, and the trapdoor to the hidden chamber creaked open, revealing the ladder we had discovered the previous night. "The cipher has spoken," Holmes said, his voice tinged with triumph. "Let us see what the tower conceals." We descended into the chamber, our lantern casting eerie shadows on the stone walls. The air was damp, heavy with the scent of earth and age. The brass mechanism we had found before stood on its pedestal, its gears now faintly illuminated by a shaft of moonlight from a hidden vent above. Holmes examined it, his fingers tracing the alchemical symbols carved into the stone. "This is no," translated swiftly. "To the seeker of truth, the stars are both guide and guardian. The Order protects what Tycho hid. This is no mere artifact, Watson. It is a map, a guide to a greater secret still hidden in the tower." Before we could study it further, a shadow flickered at the chamber's entrance. A figure, cloaked in saffron, stood silhouetted against the moonlight, a dagger glinting in his hand. "You go too far, Englishman," he hissed, his voice low and accented. "The star is not yours to claim." Holmes, unfazed, stepped forward, his voice calm but commanding. "And you are not its keeper. Who are you, and why did you kill Varnum?" The figure laughed, a cold sound that echoed off the stone. "Varnum was a fool, meddling in secrets older than he knew. The Order of the Saffron Veil guards the star, and we will not be undone by you." He lunged, but Holmes was faster, sidestepping and seizing the man's wrist. The dagger clattered to the floor, and the figure wrenched free, fleeing up the ladder before we could pursue. Holmes retrieved the dagger, noting its ornate handle, engraved with a saffron flower. "A member of the Order," he said, "but not the mastermind. This blade is ceremonial, not practical. A symbol of their allegiance." We emerged from the chamber, the parchment and box secured in Holmes's coat. The observatory was empty, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. "The Order is desperate," Holmes said, his eyes narrowing. They know we are close, and their actions betray their fear. Back at our lodgings, Holmes spread the parchment on the table, its star chart revealing a constellation unfamiliar to me. "This is no ordinary map," he said. "It points to a location within Prague, perhaps another chamber or a hidden vault. The Order killed Varnum to protect this secret, but they underestimated his foresight. He left us the cipher to ensure the truth would out." I frowned, the web of deception growing ever more tangled. But the locked room, alchemist's cipher, all wove a tapestry of intrigue that only Holmes could unravel. Yet the danger was palpable, the Order's shadow looming ever closer. "Tomorrow," Holmes said, his voice steady, "we follow the star chart. The truth lies within Prague, and we shall find it, though the Order seeks to stop us." As I retired, the image of the saffron-cloaked figure lingered, a specter of deception in a city of shadows. The tower's secrets were yielding, but at what cost? Chapter 8. The Nighttime Pursuit. The fog of Prague wrapped the city in a spectral embrace as Sherlock Holmes and I ventured into the night, the weight of Professor James Varnum's murder pressing ever heavier upon us. The discovery of the Star of Tycho's parchment, hidden in the astronomical tower's secret chamber, had unveiled a map to a greater mystery, guarded by the shadowy Order of the Saffron Veil. The encounter with the cloaked figure, his dagger gleaming with menace, had confirmed the danger we faced. I, Dr. John Watson, gripped my revolver tightly as we moved through the cobblestone alleys, following a lead that promised to unravel the web of deception surrounding Varnum's death. It was nearing midnight, the hour when Prague's Gothic heart seemed to beat most strongly. The gas lamps flickered, casting long shadows that danced like phantoms across the ancient facades. Holmes, his Inverness cape billowing, held the parchment from the tower, its star chart glowing faintly in the lamplight. The Latin inscription, "To the seeker of truth, the stars are both guide and guardian," had pointed us toward a location in the Old Town, where the constellation depicted on the parchment aligned with the city's layout. "Watson," Holmes said, his voice low but urgent, "the map suggests a hidden vault, perhaps in one of Prague's ancient churches or crypts. We must move swiftly, for the Order is watching." Our journey began at the Clementinum, where the tower stood silent under the moon's pale gaze. As we crossed the Charles Bridge, its stone saints looming like silent judges, a sudden movement caught Holmes's eye. "Heads for the Jewish quarter," he called, vaulting over a cart of apples that had spilled across the street. I followed, my breath ragged, as the figure ducked into a narrow passage beside the old new synagogue, its Gothic spires piercing the fog. The alley was a tunnel of darkness, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and decay. We cornered the figure at a dead end, where a crumbling wall blocked the way. The cloaked form turned, and to my astonishment, a hood fell back to reveal a woman's face, young, pale, and familiar. It was Anna, Miss Varnum's maid, her eyes wide with fear but defiant. "Stop!" she cried, clutching the parcel. "I mean you no harm, Mr. Holmes." Holmes slowed, his hand raised to signal caution. "Miss Anna," he said, his voice calm but probing, "you flee like a thief, yet you claim innocence. What is in that parcel, and why do you run?" Anna's breath came in gasps, her hands trembling as she held the parcel out. It's a letter from Professor Varnum, meant for his sister. I was to deliver it to a contact in the quarter, but I was followed. The Order. They know I've betrayed them." Holmes took the parcel, unwrapping it to reveal a sealed envelope, its wax stamped with a star. "Betrayed them?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "Explain yourself." Anna sank against the wall, her voice low. "I served Miss Varnum, but I was also paid by the order to watch the professor. They feared his discovery of the Star of Tycho. When he died, I was told to retrieve his journal, but I couldn't bear to let them have it. I gave it to Jan, the porter's son, to deliver to you. This letter, I found it hidden in the professor's lodgings after his death. It's his final message, meant for Miss Varnum. But the order wants it destroyed." Holmes broke the seal, scanning the letter's contents. His expression hardened. "Watson, listen. Eleanor, if you read this, I am gone. The Star of Tycho is real, hidden in the crypt of St. Vitus. The order will kill Inspector Novak. His brusqueness, his dismissal of clues, could he be in league with the order? I felt a chill, not from the fog, but from the growing web of conspiracy. Novak, but he's leading the investigation. Why obstruct his own case? To control it, Holmes replied, leading us out of the alley. A man in his position could stage the locked room, plant false clues, and deflect suspicion. The tobacco scent, Virginia leaf with clove, may be his signature. We must tread carefully, Watson. We hailed a cab, the driver's lantern casting a feeble glow as we climbed toward Prague Castle. The cathedral's towering spires loomed through the mist, a Gothic masterpiece that seemed to guard the city's secrets. The streets were quieter now, the fog swallowing the sounds of life. As we approached the castle gates, Holmes paused, his senses alert. "We are not alone," he whispered, pointing to a faint glow moving in the distance. A lantern, carried by a figure in a saffron cloak. We followed at a distance, keeping to the shadows. The figure entered the cathedral through a side door, its lock yielding to a key. Holmes signaled silence, and we slipped inside, the air heavy with incense and the weight of centuries. The nave was vast, its stained glass windows dark, save for moonlight filtering through. The figure descended a stone staircase to the crypt, and we followed, our footsteps muffled by the ancient stone. The crypt was a maze of tombs and relics, the air cold and still. The cloaked figure knelt before a sarcophagus, its surface carved with a star motif. Holmes stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "Show yourself, sir. Your game is up." The figure spun, revealing not Novak but a stranger. A thin man with a hawkish face, his eyes blazing with fanaticism. "You cannot have the star," he hissed, drawing a dagger. "The order protects it, as we have for centuries." Holmes dodged as the man lunged, the dagger grazing his sleeve. I raised my revolver, but Holmes waved me back. "No, Watson," saffron-cloaked fanatic, who had confirmed Inspector Karel Novak's ties to the Order of the Saffron Veil, had brought us closer to unraveling the murder of Professor James Varnum. The Star of Tycho, a fabled artifact hidden for centuries, was within reach, its location hinted at by the star chart we had found in the astronomical tower's secret chamber. Yet the danger was palpable, the order's reach extending even to the heart of Prague's sacred spaces. I, Dr. John Watson, felt the weight of the mystery as Holmes's relentless mind pieced together the final threads of the case. The crypt was a labyrinth of stone sarcophagi and faded inscriptions, the moonlight filtering through a high window casting eerie patterns on the walls. Our prisoner, bound and sullen, glared at us from beside a star-carved tomb, his defiance unbroken despite his capture. Holmes, his eyes sharp with purpose, examined the sarcophagus, its surface etched with symbols mirroring those in Varnum's journal. "Watson," he said, his voice low but resonant. "The star chart led us here, to this crypt. The star of Tycho is near, but the Order has gone to great lengths to protect it. We must find the final clue before they regroup." I glanced at the prisoner. His saffron cloak crumpled at his feet. "He mentioned Novak," I said. "If the inspector is part of the Order, he's been manipulating the investigation from the start. Could he be the killer?" Holmes's lips curled into a faint smile. "A compelling hypothesis, Watson, but we lack proof. Novak's role is undeniable, but whether he wielded the dagger himself remains to be seen. The tobacco scent, Virginia leaf with clove, is our link. We must return to the tower, for the final clue lies there." We secured the prisoner to a rusted iron ring in the crypt's wall, ensuring he could not escape, and made our way back through the fog-laden streets to the Clementinum. The astronomical tower loomed under the midnight sky, its spire a dark finger pointing to the stars. The city was silent, save for the distant toll of a church bell and the soft clatter of a lone hansom cab, my aligning it to the precise coordinates indicated, pointing not to the heavens, but to a specific point within the tower itself. "Varnum was clever," he murmured. "He hid the truth in plain sight, using the telescope as a map." A faint click echoed from the base of the telescope, and a small panel slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a single sheet of parchment, its edges brittle with age. Holmes unfolded it carefully, revealing a detailed diagram of the tower's lower chamber, with an X marking a spot beneath the pedestal we had found earlier. A note in Varnum's hand read, "The star lies where the shadows align. Trust the heavens, not the men who guard them." Holmes's eyes gleamed. "The lower chamber, Watson. The pedestal's mechanism was a decoy, meant to distract the Order. The true hiding place is beneath it." We descended the trapdoor once more, our lantern casting flickering shadows on the alchemical carvings. The pedestal stood as before, its brass gears silent. Holmes knelt, examining the floor with his magnifying glass. "Here," he said, pressing a stone that gave way under his touch. A section of the floor slid aside, revealing a small iron box, its surface engraved with a star. Inside was a crystal orb, no larger than a fist, its facets catching the light in a mesmerizing dance. "The star of Tycho," Holmes said, holding it aloft. "Not a jewel, but a lens, a tool for observing the heavens, crafted by Brahe himself." Before I could marvel, a creak from above signaled danger. Inspector Novak stood at the trapdoor, his face twisted with rage, a revolver in his hand. "You've gone too far, Holmes," he growled, his accent thick. "The star belongs to the Order. Hand it over, or you die here." Holmes, unfazed, slipped the orb into his coat. "Inspector Novak," he said calmly, "your involvement was inevitable. The tobacco scent, your dismissal of clues, your presence at every turn. It all points to you. You staged the locked room to protect the Order's secret." Novak's eyes narrowed, his grip tightening on the revolver. Continued. "You locked the door from within using the key and exited through the chamber below. A clever ruse, but not clever enough. We bound Novak, his resistance spent, and secured the orb and parchment. As we emerged into the observatory, the stars visible through the dome seemed to pulse with approval. The case was nearly solved, but the order's shadow lingered, a reminder that some secrets were never fully unveiled. Back at our lodgings, Holmes examined the orb, its crystal refracting the lamplight into a spectrum of colors. "This is what Varnum died for," he said. "A lens that enhances celestial observation, perhaps revealing patterns unseen by lesser instruments." The order feared its power, not for wealth but for the knowledge it could unlock. I shook my head, the weight of the case settling over me. "And Novak? Will the order protect him?" Holmes's smile was grim. "The order will disown him, Watson. Men like Novak are tools, discarded when broken. We shall deliver him to the authorities along with the evidence of his guilt." As dawn broke, the fog began to lift, revealing Prague's spires in sharp relief. The Star of Tycho was ours, but its secrets were only beginning to unfold. Holmes's mind, ever restless, was already turning to the final act, confronting the order and ensuring justice for Varnum. Chapter 10. The Deduction. The familiar warmth of 221B Baker Street enveloped us as Sherlock Holmes and I returned from Prague, the weight of Professor James Varnum's murder finally lifting, though its echoes lingered like the London fog outside our windows. It was a crisp December evening in 1889, the fire crackling merrily in the grate, casting a glow over the cluttered room. Holmes's violin resting on a pile of papers, chemical apparatus bubbling softly in the corner. I, Dr. John Watson, sat with my notebook, ready to record the final chapter of our extraordinary case. The Star of Tycho, a crystal lens of ancient craftsmanship, lay on the table, its facets catching the firelight as Holmes prepared to unveil the truth to those gathered before us. Intricate as the stars he studied. The facts, at first, seemed impossible. A man stabbed in a locked observatory, no trace of an intruder, a missing journal, and whispers of a fabled artifact, the Star of Tycho. Yet, as I have often said, when you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Miss Varnum leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "Mr. Holmes, have you found my brother's killer?" Holmes's eyes softened, but his tone remained precise. "I have, Miss Varnum. Let us begin with the scene. The astronomical tower, a medieval spire where your brother worked alone on the night of October 25th, 1889. Found at midnight, stabbed with his own dagger, the door locked, the key in his pocket. The police, led by Inspector Novak, declared it unsolvable. But the truth was hidden in plain sight. He turned to the map, pointing to a diagram of the tower. The locked room was a ruse designed to baffle. Beneath the observatory lies a secret chamber, accessible by a trapdoor. The killer entered and exited through this passage, sweeping the dust to conceal their path. The door was locked from within to create the illusion of impossibility, using the key Varnum kept on him. Dietrich snorted, his German accent thick. "Preposterous. You suggest a secret passage, yet the police found nothing." Holmes's smile was sharp. "The police, Professor Dietrich, were led by a man with much to hide. But let us proceed methodically. The motive lay in Varnum's discovery, the Star of Tycho, a crystal lens crafted by Tycho Brahe, designed to enhance celestial observation. Varnum's journal, recovered through the courage of a repentant maid, Anna, revealed his pursuit of this artifact, hidden in the tower since the 16th century. He uncovered a cipher, encoded in the telescope's scratches and the astrolabe's gears, pointing to a chamber beneath the observatory. He held up the journal, its pages worn but legible. Varnum's notes spoke of the Order of the Saffron Veil, a secret society dedicated to guarding the star, positioned to stage the murder. Entering through the trapdoor, striking Varnum with his own dagger, and sweeping the dust to erase your tracks. You locked the door, leaving the key, and exited below, confident the locked room would defy investigation. Your dismissal of clues, your haste to close the case, it was all to protect the order's secret. Miss Varnum gasped, her hand to her mouth. Inspector Novak? But why? Holmes turned to her, his voice gentle. Greed and loyalty, Miss Varnum. The Star of Tycho, while not a jewel, holds immense value to those who revere knowledge or power. The Order believed it could unlock celestial secrets, perhaps even influence scientific thought. Novak, as their agent, ensured Varnum's silence, but he underestimated your brother's foresight. The cipher, the journal, the letter to you, all were Varnum's safeguards, ensuring the truth would emerge. Dietrich shifted uncomfortably. And what of me, Holmes? You've accused me before, yet I had no part in this. Holmes nodded. You, Professor Dietrich, were a convenient distraction. Your rivalry with Varnum, your public scorn for his theories made you a plausible suspect. But your letters, found in his lodgings, showed only academic jealousy, not murderous intent. You were unaware of the Order's machinations, though your correspondence with one of their members unwittingly provided them with information. Holmes held up the crystal orb, its light dancing across the room. This is the Star of Tycho, a lens, not a treasure but a tool of unparalleled precision. Varnum's discovery would have revolutionized astronomy, but the Order saw it as a threat to their ancient charge. Novak, acting on their orders, killed to preserve their secrecy. The constable tightened his grip on Novak, who sagged, his defiance crumbling. You cannot prove I wielded the dagger, he muttered. Holmes's smile was grim. The tobacco inspector betrays you. Its scent clung to the crime scene, and a sample from your lodgings, procured discreetly, sought to bury it. Knowledge is a perilous pursuit, but its value outweighs the cost. The star will go to the Royal Astronomical Society, where it belongs, not to a secret cabal. I nodded, struck by the moral weight of his words. Ambition, unchecked, had driven the Order to murder. But trust, in Varnum's foresight, in Holmes's genius, had prevailed. As I closed my notebook, the fire's warmth seemed to mirror the clarity we had achieved, though I knew the shadows of such secrets would linger.